Welcome to Between the Lines. We welcome. Today is our fifth segment of our energy series, and it's been great. And we're getting great responses from around the country. We appreciate everybody watching. We appreciate our sponsors. We'll go through that later. But tonight has been the most challenging show to prepare for me because I've from the very beginning of putting this all together, we've talked about budgets. We have UPF left to go, TVA, but understanding the uranium process, understanding how we get to where we go, especially within Oak Ridge, it's been a learning process for me. And finally, I get one of the leading companies in the country to come on and talk about it a little bit. And we all hear it from Washington and the national press. How do we become totally energy independent and we get our uranium produced? And we deal with American companies here, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We have Centrus, the leading, and I would venture, this is me talking, the only producer moving towards highly enriched uranium, and they built facilities in Oak Ridge and invested $100 million in East Tennessee, and I want to welcome them tonight. Guys, welcome. We got your names up there. We'll get them up there. Patrick, Navy veteran, great guy. And then Larry's the vice president here locally of Centrus Energy, and you're going to take his place, right?
Yes, sir.
Larry's going down with me. We're all going that way. I think that's what it's about. Yeah. Guys, welcome. Thank you for your investment. Some of my staff and coworkers got over and said it was just really impressive. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Oak Ridge. We'll start with that. Then I want to come back and circle a little bit about how we got in this jam to begin with in the 90s. We quit producing, we went another direction, right. And all of a sudden we woke up somewhere along the line and we decided, whoops, we're getting behind again. But tell us a little bit about your Oak Ridge operations.
Okay, I'll start. Well, first of all, just for your audience, I think it's fairly well known that I'm retiring in a couple of months, and we've hired Patrick Brown to be our senior vice president and then president of American Centrifuge Operating, which is the company we operate here in Oak Ridge. So a little bit about our company. I was telling you, Alan, earlier a story, but a while back I was in a nuclear conference in Utah, I believe it was, and I was scheduled to speak, and I'd been asked many, many times, who is Centrus? Who is Centrus? What do you do? Well, we've always intentionally kept a low profile simply because we're a classified operation. We don't want to be a target. We hide behind our walls lots of times. But at that point in time in that conference, I put 30 slides up that I never talked to. And 42 minutes later, I was still talking about the fact that Centrus was an American company with an American technology, with an American supply chain, and American workforce. Now, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, especially it sounds like the goal of what we're trying to achieve.
It absolutely is, and we're the only one that can say that. We have to ask the question, why is that important? Well, it's important from an energy security standpoint, clearly. We don't want our country to be totally dependent on foreign governments, quite frankly, because every other enricher that's currently in the business right now is a foreign-owned, government-owned company. We're a private company. So one, from an energy security standpoint, just fueling your commercial fleet of reactors, you want your own local capability so you can protect yourself anytime there's a political upset.
Is there a technology risk there?
There's always a technology risk in what we do. It's a challenge. We protect our technology. Patrick may talk about it in a little bit, but quite frankly, as it stands today, we have the most advanced, most productive uranium enrichment technology the world has ever conceived. And better than that, we've demonstrated it, and we've demonstrated it quite recently in our Piketon, Ohio plant. Now, that's important. Having a demonstrated technology before you build a huge plant is incredibly important because you have to understand the reliability, you have to understand your production capacity and those types of things. And we've got that all under our belt right now. But one of the really beautiful things about our project, our company, and our path forward is we do all of our manufacturing in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And when you think about building a multi-billion-dollar production facility, you can think about the fact that 40% of those dollars will come right through Oak Ridge, Tennessee, because the supply chain has to supply here. We manufacture.
Can you explain the supply chain and how it works in terms of producing that necessary fuel?
Yeah. So if you look at the front end of the nuclear fuel supply chain, there are several steps that have to occur. Uranium's mined out of the ground just like you would any other entity. It has to be milled build it, and it has to be converted typically at the mining station to uranium oxide. Uranium oxide, as mined, has about 0.711% uranium-235, which is the fissile component. What we're
So
trying
just for the audience, we're pulling the 235 out of the 238.
we are. That's what we do.
I know. I understand.
All right. After the mining and milling step, the uranium has to go to a front-end converter where they transition the material. They chemically treat it and react it so that the uranium oxide becomes uranium hexafluoride, UF6.
That's right.
Now, I know we're in Oak Ridge, and
That's an Ohio process. Didn't they have that bid up there for a long time? Wasn't it there?
well, that's the
Talking about the contractors.
yeah, that's on the backside.
Okay,
that we'll
gotcha.
get
I'm sorry.
there.
My apologies.
Yeah,
I
so
get that.
there's one company in our country right now, Converdyne, Metropolis,
they're the only
Illinois.
ones.
Yeah. Now there are foreign companies that can do it as well, but after it's converted to UF6, we bring it into our uranium enrichment
Yeah,
plant.
makes sense.
UF6 has great qualities where you can heat it and it becomes a gas, and we process it as a gas, separate 235 and 238.
Right.
It's called enriching the 235, if you will, and then we withdraw it back out and freeze it back to a solid in cylinders. After that, it goes to, for the low enriched product, it goes off to the fuel fabrication. There are a couple of fuel fabricators in the country, and as fuel fabricators, they'll deconvert it back into typically uranium oxide, and then process it into LEU fuel rods. Now, I know we're here to talk today a little bit about a high-assay LEU,
Yes, we
which
are.
is what we produce in Ohio.
Yes.
And
that is what's going to be necessary to run some of these small modular reactors, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Virtually all of the SMRs, the advanced reactors, require high-assay LEU, and you have to ask why. Well, it's pretty simple. They're smaller, so they need a higher energy source, and that's what you get. It's like burning 93 octane gas in your car instead of 87 octane.
It's why the Navy uses 90% enriched, 90 plus for their their reactors. Very energy dense.
Yeah.
You refuel 15 to 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Efficiency.
So you get a longer life out of it. You have less material to dispose of at the end. You can go longer periods between refueling. So the economics work for a reactor because they see all of those benefits. High-assay LEU is obviously more expensive. It takes more work to get there. It takes a new plant, and we're constructing or have constructed at least a demonstration plant in Ohio right now where we are producing high-assay LEU.
Patrick, what do you want to add?
Well, you mentioned the 100% American technology workforce and supply chain. The added benefit there is we're the only company that can meet national security needs. So unobligated enrichment that our centrifuges can offer. And we should mention, I used to work for Urenco and the European design.
That's a Dutch design, correct?
That's right. That we constructed there. The centrifuge that we manufacture is the most advanced in the world. If you look at them side by side, it absolutely dwarfs it, and the internals we can't get into today, much more advanced.
Yes. Adding on to what he said, Patrick mentioned the term unobligated, and simply what that means is anything that's used for national security by policy, U.S. policy, has to come without any peaceful use obligations, essentially meaning it has to come from this country. Because if we would source something overseas, many of the overseas governments are going to resist using those in programs.
Conditions.
Because it can be military conditions. That's nothing else.
Tell me, it just seems to me like we're starting to get busy building smaller reactors. We want to create energy resources. We want to become independent. But over the years, we've let our abilities to do some of that fuel, some of those things, be depleted. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, everybody just said, okay, all right, we don't need to do as much anymore. And here we are now with everybody's out accelerated us on that end of it. And I think there's a need to go quicker. I mean, the Secretary and the President talk about we need to get these things done in 3 to 4 years. Right. I can't find anybody in the system, and I say this with all due respect to everybody else, but I can't find anybody in the system that's ready to take the field. Let's use a football analogy. I mean, we're Midwestern. So, I mean, I get the 2031 and the 220, but how are we going to do something in 4 years if we don't expand the resources we already have?
So building a uranium enrichment plant to do that We always say the barriers to entry are high, and the high barrier is the cost.
That's right.
This is a complex technology. It's expensive to get into, and that explains why every other enricher in the world is owned by a foreign government. The governments have to be involved. So there are a couple of things.
Subsidizing it, sure.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, they pay for it.
That's a big subsidy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, we're in an era right now. Ukraine happened, the invasion of Ukraine happened. Our Congress implemented what's called a Russian ban, which prevents any Russian enriched uranium or Russian uranium products from coming into the United States starting January 1, 2028. Now, last time I checked, that's less than 3 years away.
Yes.
So that ban, we measure quantities of work that we do in uranium enrichment in what's called a separative work unit, a SWU.
SWT. Sure.
Yeah, sure. So, we have an advantage. We're here in Oak Ridge. We have a very nuclear-oriented audience. So they're mostly going to understand what we're talking about.
That's correct.
But the uranium ban, the Russian uranium ban, has the potential to create a shortfall of about 4 million SWU by 2028. 4 million SWU is more than a commercial uranium enrichment plant.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
That's a bunch.
I'm just looking at what you're producing and other people are talking about, and we're not anywhere near those kind of numbers.
We're not. Now, I'm not going to claim that we can fill that whole 4 million SWU demand gap, but I am going to tell you we can be well into construction and operation at that point in time and be well on our way to fill it. There's nobody that can fill it right now.
When you look at speed to market, a lot of the risk in the construction is the site preparation, the designing, the constructing, all the permitting for the land, the NRC licenses. That a lot of the risk and the time is into that. When I joined Centrus, I got the tour of the Piketon facility. That facility exists. The license exists. You gave me the tour, and you can see the base plates just waiting to be, have a centrifuge put in. So a lot of the risk is
as fast as you can make them, right?
Yep.
It has been de-risked. We need the capital to deploy now. So we do have a head start versus some of our peers.
Well, I think the government's already investing more in you than they are the others, just by but not really investing, but for production. You have to meet production guidelines like the June 30th deadline. And now we move into phase 3. Who knows how much they'll give you to do it?
Yeah. So we are operating under a contract with the Department of Energy. It's a nuclear energy contract to produce high-assay LEU at a rate of about, actually, it is 900 kGUs per year.
Correct.
As we sit today, we're rapidly approaching 900 kgs for this year. So we'll meet those milestones. What the government chooses to do in the future is somewhat of an unknown. We have a phase 3 of our contract that's available. We believe the government is interested in exercising that, but it hasn't happened yet.
It's not my place, but I don't know how they could avoid being interested. Maybe as a citizen it's my place, but I don't really know that. I also think, and this is just maybe the telex contract going away even creates more pressure on everybody. And I think we're going to have to get, it's kind of like you're the only guy on the court. It doesn't matter whether you're the best or second. There's nobody else playing within the next 3 or 4 years. We have to invest in those existing technologies. And is anybody else producing? You produce 900 kilowatt. Anybody else produce anything during that time?
Not in the free world.
Zero.
Not in the free world. Yeah, we have the only what's called a Category 2 license in the country. So, it's limited to us right now for production of high-assay LEU. But if you want to think about what we do, there are actually 2 streams. We make the high-assay LEU for the upcoming advanced reactor market, small modular reactors and some of the advanced. But we also produce low-enriched uranium for the existing fleet.
Yes.
And you can make an argument on either side which one needs to come first. We've got a Russian ban coming in January 2028. Somebody's got to fill that ban. We have probably on the order of 35 or 40 advanced reactors being developed right now.
And under telex, what type of uranium enrichment is coming from Russia?
Right now, LEU, low-enriched uranium.
Okay.
It's only low-enriched. So that's going away. So that gap for our commercial fleet of nuclear reactors is going to exist in 2028.
Let's talk about TVA for a second. TVA's they've chosen. Obviously, we have some issues there, but they're chosen, and they've looked at, they've chosen, which model is it? The Hitachi, I believe, for their, whatever that is. I'm just using them as an example, not specifics, et cetera, et cetera. How long does it take from start to finish for them to get up and be producing electricity or whatever?
Decade plus.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think the point is we can build enrichment capacity to meet their fuel needs faster than they can build their reactor.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the demand signal from a reactor like that causes us to build enrichment capacity, and we'll have enriched.
And that'll be a
uranium
lower 4 to 6 level on that, or that high end should be more, though, 8 to 10, shouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it depends on how they optimize their reactor. A lot of the companies are still trying to stay as close to the LEU range as possible, one for cost, and there's more risk in high-assay LEU. There's only one producer, and we're producing a small amount. So.
Chandler, let's take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about centrifuges.
America runs on power, and for nuclear power, we need enriched uranium, but almost all of it comes from overseas. In 2019, the Trump administration took action, working with Centrus to build the first new American-owned uranium enrichment plant in 70 years. And now, Centrus is ready to expand to meet our nuclear power and military needs, free from dependence on foreign suppliers. Centrus, American technology built by American workers.
From Oak Ridge, Tennessee, IB3 Global Solutions conducts operations around the world to enhance the U.S. national security posture and minimize radiological and nuclear threats. IB3 Global Solutions. Mission first.
Vision, values, and commitments.
Extraordinary teams building inspiring projects.
We live for a challenge.
We do the right thing.
Exercise the highest level of integrity and ethics.
Create a positive legacy.
Through purposeful
and sustainable projects.
We take care of each other.
Safety and well-being above all.
Treat each other with the utmost respect. We succeed together.
Embrace our differences.
Seek diverse views.
And listen to understand.
Foster a deep sense of belonging.
We build trust. Develop lasting one-team relationships.
With our colleagues, customers, and partners.
Hold ourselves accountable.
To deliver excellence.
Feeling overwhelmed with your business finances? At P&L Business Services, we handle all your bookkeeping, payroll, and tax needs. From federal tax returns to QuickBooks training, we've got you covered. With over 25 years of experience, we provide customized packages to fit your business. Focus on what you love most, building your business. Let us take care of the rest. Call 865-294-4792. P&L Business Services, empowering you to grow your business.
This is Joe Heckman, President of Waste Management at Energy Solutions. Nuclear power is on the rise. Energy Solutions is part of this transition and part of the solution, delivering comprehensive services and assets that support the entire nuclear life cycle. Energy Solutions is protecting and preserving the environment for generations to come.
At Navarro, we partner with our clients to advance technologies and deliver effective solutions for complex challenges in the nuclear, environmental, and clean energy fields.
Welcome back to Between the Lines. We're talking with Centrus Energy and their leaders here in Oak Ridge and the amazing things they're doing to make us energy independent in the world. And they're the lead company, and they're doing a great job. We're going to talk a little bit about what they do in Oak Ridge exactly. They have a $100 million facility out there. They're putting a lot of people to work. Patrick will tell us a little bit more about that. And they build centrifuges. Is that the exclusive thing you do? That's a pretty big thing. Don't get me. I'm not trying to minimize it, but they build centrifuges, which aren't this big, folks. I mean, they're a little bit bigger than that. Tell us
about the workforce.
Yeah, so everything. Tell us about the centrifuge.
You want me to do that one?
Yeah, because my clearance is still being processed.
Yeah, so they're obviously I'm limited in what to say, but if you think about it, I think everybody sees the news.
In a very general macro sense is all I need. They don't know anything about it.
Well, that's right. You see the Iranian centrifuges on TV all the time because of the unrest that's going on with Iran. Their centrifuge is this big around, this tall. Ours, unclassified, is 2 feet in diameter and 40 feet tall.
Yeah.
All right, so a centrifuge operates very much like it's the same forces you would feel if you were in a car going around a corner. You know, Patrick and I go around the corner. I put a lot more force on the wall than he does. He would go to the inside of the centrifuge. Sure. I would go to the outside. So that's the same way.
It's like that ride at the fair where you get stuck up against the wall, right? I got that.
That's exactly right.
Same thing.
So primarily, there are two constituents of the UF6 gas. One's uranium-238, and one of them's 235. That's not entirely true. There's some other stuff.
Yeah, but not of any sizable quantity.
Yeah, the U-238 goes to the wall. The U-235 goes inboard when you spin it at a high speed, and we withdraw the U-235. We preferentially enrich the U-235
That's
that
what
way.
the centrifuge accomplishes.
Yeah,
whatever technology. I got it.
Yeah, it's that simple. Now the technology is quite complex.
Yeah, and that's also proprietary. The point is that you've got people from around East Tennessee working there. How many were working there, Patrick?
That's right. Yeah, so at the manufacturing facility, 150 today, but our plans, if all the DOE awards, fall into place as we expect, up to 500.
Do you have the capacity for that? Do you have the place to put 500?
Oh, absolutely. If you come visit the facility, you can see plenty of room to expand. And these aren't just, your kind of average jobs. These are high-tech, high-paying, machinists, engineers, scientists with Q clearances. So these aren't easy to find. Right. These are, great jobs to have in a community. And so even probably more desirable than an enrichment facility. So when you build an enrichment facility, you have a large workforce that tends to fall away once it's operating. But these manufacturing roles will stay. They're enduring roles and great to have in the community.
Oh, absolutely. That's and this was a good area probably to locate because of the access to those kinds of qualified people, right?
That's right.
I mean, a few things stand out about the area. I come from the Northeast. I'm a Southerner. I'm from New Orleans, but I came from New York and Massachusetts. The political environment here, you can't beat it. It's probably one of the best in the nation to actually have a nuclear business. So, no doubt, due to the congressman's
you don't
efforts.
have the hostility of the environmental stuff, yeah.
Absolutely, and not to mention the skilled workforce.
I miss that too. France is the most progressive country in Europe, probably. 87% of their electricity comes from nuclear power.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
If the French are buying into them, you would think that the people in the nation who relate to the French would be able to figure that out. It's clean. It's clean energy. Yep. It's the purest clean energy.
And I think that argument's breaking free. The reason I'm here at Centrus is because I was in New York and Massachusetts, and about 2 years ago, I started having Google and Amazon knocking on our door and to put a small modular reactor in New York. We were building the kind of the super grid, we called it, for hydro, offshore wind. And now we flipped it to, okay, we got to connect, large and small nuclear power. And so that was never talked about up until recent. And so that got me, investigating what is this HALEU, and then finding Centrus as being the only player in town, right? Yeah.
Tell me this. Tell me if you're, do you have any customers besides the government? Do you sell to commercial?
Well, we do. We sell commercially. We run an LEU trading business right now, in part, but we also do work for others besides the U.S. government. In addition to that, as we're trying to determine the way we fund building the large construction project for the centrifuge plant, we've got a little more than $2 billion worth of offtake agreements from commercial utilities.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. That's how you pay for these things. So once these utilities become comfortable with the fact that your technology works and you're ready to build your technology, they're willing to enter into these types of contracts. And with those contracts, you can commercially finance a large portion of it. Yeah. We still need the government's help to get through all this.
It's probably more of a vested interest of the government than it is anybody. They need to be able to create utilities for their people, not to mention the challenges of the defense industry. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so if these people, how long has your plant been? How long have you been building centrifuges in Oak Ridge?
I think it goes back to 2007, I think, with...
in that location?
Yeah, it does.
I must have slept through that area. What's the deal, Brad? That's right down the road. We didn't even know it.
Well, a little bit of history on the gas centrifuge project. Under the Carter administration, there was what was called GCEP, Gas Centrifuge Enrichment Project, built or at least authorized in Ohio. It's the same place we're building our plant right now. The government spent more than $3 billion and then suffered the outfall from, at that point in time, 3 Mile Island, the lack of nuclear interest, and ultimately shut that plant or that activity down and abandoned the site. So in 2001, we leased and bought the rights in some respects from the government to the technology for centrifuge that existed in 1985 when it was shut down, and leased the plant site in Ohio so that we could construct a new nuclear plant, a new enrichment plant there. All was going well except for this thing called Fukushima happened and upset the market.
That was a nightmare.
So, that slowed down. Japan shut down all the reactors. Germany, other countries decided they were completely getting out of nuclear. And what you're seeing now is the understanding that we have to have nuclear in order to have a clean world. So the countries that were getting out are getting back in. The advanced reactor developers are rapidly trying to design, license, and ultimately build reactors. And this is creating a whole new demand cycle for us.
Yeah, I think some people get scared off because there's a heavy front-end investment in nuclear. And a lot of countries, a lot of people politically don't want to take that challenge. Sometimes I think it's not as much the environment as it is the money. That's been my experience in 40 years. But I mean, the payoff in the back end is enormous.
It is.
It's enormous for countries, and I really get to a place where I don't understand it as much. Let me see how I can ask this question in a non-proprietary manner. What do you see as the uranium challenges for us to become domestic above and beyond what we've said? When you look at the international layout of everything, what would you encourage the government to do? And what can the government do for you? Yeah. That's the second question.
Well, the government's already doing a lot for us as a country, as a citizen. Congressman Fleischman's been he's an incredible leader, under his Energy and Water Subcommittee, where he's chairman. He has advanced nearly $3.5 billion for front-end nuclear. And, he's right here in our hometown. Yep. He's right here where we're building centrifuges. So that's a big part. That simple message that there's money available has caused pieces of the front-end nuclear cycle to start developing. And when I say that, the converter ConverDyn reopened their plant. We're watching miners apply for new permits and increase their production every day. The fuel fabricators are already there and ready to go. The missing piece is uranium enrichment. And like I said earlier, the big challenge with uranium enrichment is the cost to get in the door. It's expensive.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, how many different types of reactors or different types of technologies are competing to move forward? And are all of them dependent, I'm talking about basically commercial energy here, are all of them dependent on the same highly enriched HALEU?
Well,
so that's what drew my interest to Centrus, because we had all these small modular reactor customers trying to connect to the power grid, and we researched in 9 of the 10 reactors in the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program from the DOE, 9 of the 10 require HALEU. And so when I looked up, okay, that's obviously the constraint. Let's look at what's going on in the HALEU market. What's keeping them up at night is access to the fuel. And then if you keep going backwards, okay, who's providing the fuel? Only one, Centrus, that's it. And then, so that really just highlights that, everybody needs this fuel, and there's not many players that can provide it today.
Does the political environment, I was kind of, I don't think disappointed is the word, but to give 5 people $2 million and to say we're going to leave this open, it was more like, we want to encourage you to keep trying to do what you're doing, but et cetera, but not to single out more money. Of course, they've got a separate contract here, and they've got different things working with you. But I just think if we don't accelerate quickly, we're going to get in trouble. We're not going to be able to follow through with these things. And it's like a restaurant, on a corner. Some of these people aren't going to get there. In the end, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to have 2 or 3 providers left, available or whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
You're absolutely right. If you look at just the uranium enrichment piece, the part we're in right now, there were 6 awards made by the Department of Energy, all $2 million awards. And I understand what the department's doing. We've each been.
Tell me what they're doing.
Well, we've each been asked to provide what they've chosen to call an optimization study.
Okay.
Explain to us how you would build the plant. Yeah. Well, and that's right. Explain how you'd build it, what schedule you're going to build it on, what the risks are, those types of things. And from those studies, I believe that they intend to make a selection to build an enrichment plant.
Okay. When's the studies due?
Studies were just recently submitted. Okay. They're all in. So, I can't predict DOE's timing. I can't predict administration's timing. But with the momentum we're seeing out of the current Trump administration and out of Congress, we would expect it to be pretty quick. Now, you made a comment a second ago, Alan, about enrichers. They're ultimately being 2 or 3. If you think about where the enrichers are right now, of the 6, 2 of them are existing foreign-owned enrichers. They have capacity, and they typically expand based on demand. If they have a contract, they build to fill that contract. Okay, they don't need money for this. There's us that has the technology and a small production. We do need the money. And there are 3 others that have very viable technologies, but they're not advanced enough. They're not matured enough to be available in the time frame that needs to happen. So, our argument is twofold. One, we're the only one that can get there quickly. And secondly, in addition to providing energy security for the country, we can provide the additional benefit of national security, meaning we fuel the boats and do all the other things associated with it. And that group of people that can provide the national security is one. That's us.
And there's another point. There's the 2 European enrichers. It seems like 2 players. If you look under the curtain, it's actually one centrifuge manufacturing company that all the eggs are in that basket. So
Located
there's a technology risk as well.
Located where?
In the Netherlands.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Okay, so we'll leave it there. About that. You did 900 kilograms in 6 months, roughly. Got the kilo down, didn't I? 900 kilograms in 6 months to produce the only production of HALEU in that time. And that was through your processes and your supply chain and working with Tennesseans who helped build the centrifuges and Ohio. So my question is, if they cut loose and said, okay, we're going to give you 10 times that much money next month, we're going to give you $1 billion, how fast can you produce? How much can you go up from the 900 kilograms to meet our demands?
So one thing, we've done 900 kilograms in 12 months. Not 6
okay,
months,
I just saw 2 quarters.
So our stated plan is from the time the go button's pushed until we're actually producing is 42 months. Now, if there's an unlimited supply of money, which there won't be, you can advance.
I'm just taking
that
money
off
bit. The table. I'm just taking
theoretical maximum.
Yeah. So the way it works is the first cascade of centrifuges take a little while because the supply chain's there, but it's incomplete. So we have to finish that, and we have to make parts. But at about the 18-month mark, centrifuges start coming rapidly out of our Oak Ridge plant and heading for Ohio. By 42 months, those centrifuges are producing enriched uranium.
Okay, so no matter who you were or what was happening, from the day you start to build that centrifuge and you send it, it's going to be about 3.5 years before you actually start producing new amounts. Well, do you have the capacity to keep producing some at this point going forward?
We do.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, we do. Of course, we have our high-assay plant in Ohio, high-assay low-enriched plant in Ohio, which can continue to produce.
At the level it is now, basically.
So we have 2 major process buildings in Ohio. We have that in one building. The other building's completely empty, ready to accept all the balance of plant equipment and centrifuge equipment. We have our major engineering, procurement, and construction contractor on board with us. We have all the major components of that. But one of the points that I started to make earlier and I failed to, Patrick talked about the fact that we would have 500 employees in Oak Ridge. We'll have a similar number of employees in Ohio. But if you look at the supply chain that goes with that, meaning, pick one, Oak Ridge Tool, pick one of your manufacturers, now they're all employing quite a number of people, and we believe that supply chain will number in the thousands. And by the time you start affecting families of employees and the ice cream shops and the grocery stores, we're in probably 10,000 lives
That's
that we affect.
That's a little more my wheelhouse. Let me ask you this then. Are you spending money with local manufacturers?
We are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We are absolutely trying to
Whether it's Tennessee Tool or Oak Ridge Tool or somebody else?
Our desire, and I can't get too far into the contractual discussions, but our desire is to have a regional supplier and read regional as Oak Ridge supplier providing all the parts that are unclassified for our centrifuge machines. We make all the classified parts in our own shop,
well, you should.
Obviously.
And what's that potential budget a year? Just roughly estimate.
Depends on how big a plant you build.
Yeah.
Let's look at it.
If you get to the 500 employee expansion and you're building at a 3 or 4 times rate I produce.
So, we're not openly talking about the cost yet, because we're negotiating that with the department, of course. But let's use, Arano made a recent announcement that said they were going to build, what was it, about a $5 billion plant?
Something like that.
All right, if we were to build a $5 billion plant, $2 billion would come through here in about 5 years. So $400 million a year.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money in my book.
Yeah. Et cetera, et cetera. Well, without naming a competitor, if any of your competitors can get online and start producing kilograms, start meeting some kind of contractual obligations, what's the earliest we could see real competition without names? Anybody?
Well, the competitors that are already in the business will do a simple expansion for LEU. Now, if it's HALO, it's a different license, and that takes a while. Competition, when you and I were talking before this, I mentioned that competition's good for this industry.
Yeah, it is good.
And we view it as good. It makes us all better.
Sure,
because competition is there. Well, frankly, as Patrick said a minute ago, there's not any competition in the industry.
For the HALO.
For any of it, even the LEU.
Really?
You've got 2 European producers,
100%.
and that's it. And they're sourcing
you mean
the
domestically we have no competition?
Yeah.
I got you.
Well, we don't have any competition in the world. They have the world market.
Yeah, so when Urenco, I won't say the name, when our European friends were building the quote-unquote first gas centrifuge enrichment facility in the United States in New Mexico, I was a veteran. I was like, okay, this is great. American jobs, American first. I went there. Everything's black box. The technology, it gets shipped in from Europe. We can't look at it. We can operate it. But, it's very much not... a U.S. business.
And that restrains opportunities.
Absolutely, for the national defense in particular. Yeah.
You can imagine a scenario where, for example, if we were the only enricher in the world and we built all of our centrifuges in one plant, and we found what we would call a common mode failure, a failure that perpetrates itself through the entire population of centrifuges. All of a sudden you take a centrifuge plant down because you have to go back and fix these failures. The situation the world is in right now, the free world at least, it's relying on one centrifuge manufacturer, and it's not us. So we bring that competition to the market. And then price, is driven by competition as well. So it's
will other people in the free world utilize Centrus? Will they say, look, they got a better product?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Like I said earlier, we've got a little more than $2 billion in off-take contracts right now.
They love competition because they have someone else to play off of.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. That's what I said. I said, I'd do that too. I'd get a better deal with somebody else in the business.
This is a capitalistic market. Competition's good. It makes us better every day because we have to compete.
Absolutely.
I'm just excited that you're here. I'm just excited that we got somebody that can do the job. Tell me about the, I don't want to say political, that's not a good word, but the government navigating and all of that stuff. Have you found that challenging? We're lucky to have Chuck Fleischman.
We are, and Chuck's done wonderful things for us, without a doubt. It's interesting. I tell a story quite often at work, just to drive a point home, but my wife and I were discussing how you do certain things in the environment we're in and how you make them happen. And the discussion went something like this. I said, the technical decision is really easy. It's the political decision that's difficult because there are so many factions, so many different interests out there that have to be addressed when you do these things. So
I don't understand the technical part of it. That's the key.
Well, we've done a horrible job in our industry and the nuclear industry in general explaining to the general public what we do. We manage neutrons, if you will, in a lot of ways. Most people don't know what a neutron is, and those that do know that it's invisible and it doesn't smell, but it can kill you.
Yeah.
So we've not done a good job explaining why we're safe and why we do things. But navigating through this has been interesting. We've been going at it for a while. We're doing a lot of things to make sure The right people know who we are. This is one of those things. And also we're trying to make sure that we establish such a clean, pure, effective operation in Ohio that there can be no challenge.
It's a large operation, I'm told.
It is. It's a big operation. But we built that plant up there. We've had 0 failures on any of our centrifuges in, 17, 18, 19 months. We've met all of our production goals. It's a demonstration project. So in demonstration projects, you learn, and we're learning. We've got an outstanding crew. We've got a young crew in Ohio, and they are performing outstandingly. Now, here in Tennessee, we have 150 more seasoned employees. What we do, obviously, if you're going to spend a large piece of equipment that weighs a lot at a high speed, you need to be pretty precise in what you do. So we run very much an advanced precision manufacturing facility, and we have the people to do it.
How fast do the centrifuges?
Really fast. I'd tell you, but I'd have to get
That's the killer question right there.
Okay. That's part of the proprietary nature of the business.
It's actually classified.
Oh, classified robot?
Yeah, it is.
All right, that makes it even more non-approachable. So, et cetera. But to be fair, that has a play into how we create the halo and how we do the stuff we do, classified or not. So that's important. And those technologies are competitive around the world. 2 or 3, I guess we're down to, right?
Well, if you look at the world's technologies right now, I mentioned earlier that we measure performance in separative work units, SWUs. Our unclassified number is we make 350 SWU per year per centrifuge.
Yeah, that's right. That's what okay. And we need something like 20 times that much. You know?
Well, yeah, but our competitors in their technologies make 20 to 80 SWU per year. So easily we're the the
10
most
to 1,
advanced.
12 to 1.
They dwarf if you put them next to each other. It's very significant.
Interesting. Let me ask you a question. Naval reactors. Okay. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't want to get into anything that's too hard. Where do they source all their stuff from? I mean, not the technology.
I think personally from Larry, there's a building I think that was recently torn down, which it all came out of.
That's right. So the Piketon gas, well, back way up. At the end of the Manhattan Project, the government decided to build 2 additional gaseous diffusion plants. We had K-25 here. Right. It was expanded. There was a plant built in Paducah, Kentucky, and the other one was actually in Piketon, Ohio, but it was called Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant.
Know them both well.
Yep. So once K-25 was shut down in 1985, it became a 2-stage operation. Paducah produced very low enriched uranium, and that was fed into the Ohio operation, where we produced everything from 4.955% LEU up through virtually 100% HEU. So everything that the government has right now came out of, almost everything came out of that Portsmouth, Ohio plant.
How far from Portsmouth to Piketon?
22 miles.
That is close. I didn't realize it was that close. Interesting. That's great. Where your headquarters is in Maryland. Describe the national outlay. Is it 1, 2, 3, or is there more?
Well, now, actually, we have our headquarters is in Maryland.
Yes.
In Maryland, it's in Bethesda. That facility, that building houses, our CEO, most of the senior vice presidents, with me being the exception and Patrick being the future one.
It's an admin center, I got it.
Yeah, and then we handle our finance and legal operations out of there. Our 2 operating facilities are here in Oak Ridge, the manufacturing facility, and the production facility in Ohio. And right now, both of those are under me and will soon be under Patrick.
Is Centrus got any other diversifications behind this technology or this particular work that you do? Do you do other things like, do you build, garages in California? You know what I'm saying? Is there any diversification within the industry?
So we run here a precision classified manufacturing facility. That does not lend itself.
I can't get away from it, can I?
Yeah, you can't. But without any definition, we do other work, national security, weapons program work.
Do you do anything outside of the government? That's what I was trying to get. Private type corporate stuff that you might have the science or something to do that totally unrelated to energy.
Unrelated to energy? No. We're an energy company.
Yeah, I was going to say. I figured with the manufacturing capacity and everything you've got, you might do some other stuff. All right, we'll take one more break, and we got about 15 minutes left in the show. Take it, Chandler.
America runs on power, and for nuclear power, we need enriched uranium, but almost all of it comes from overseas. In 2019, the Trump administration took action, working with Centrus to build the first new American-owned uranium enrichment plant in 70 years. And now, Centrus is ready to expand to meet our nuclear power and military needs, free from dependence on foreign suppliers. Centrus, American technology built by American workers.
From Oak Ridge, Tennessee, IB3 Global Solutions conducts operations around the world to enhance the U.S. national security posture and minimize radiological and nuclear threats. IB3 Global Solutions. Mission first.
Vision, values, and commitments.
Extraordinary teams building inspiring projects.
We live for a challenge.
We do the right thing.
Exercise the highest level of integrity and ethics.
Create a positive legacy.
Through purposeful
and sustainable projects.
We take care of each other.
Safety and well-being above all.
Treat each other with the utmost respect.
We succeed together.
Embrace our differences.
Seek diverse views.
And listen to understand.
Foster a deep sense of belonging.
We build trust. Develop lasting one-team relationships
with our colleagues, customers, and partners.
Hold ourselves accountable
to deliver excellence.
Feeling overwhelmed with your business finances? At P&L Business Services, we handle all your bookkeeping, payroll, and tax needs. From federal tax returns to QuickBooks training, we've got you covered. With over 25 years of experience, we provide customized packages to fit your business. Focus on what you love most, building your business. Let us take care of the rest. Call 865-294-4792. P&L Business Services, empowering you to grow your business.
This is Joe Heckman, President of Waste Management at Energy Solutions. Nuclear power is on the rise. Energy Solutions is part of this transition and part of the solution, delivering comprehensive services and assets that support the entire nuclear life cycle. Energy Solutions is protecting and preserving the environment for generations to come.
At Navarro, we partner with our clients to advance technologies and deliver effective solutions for complex challenges in the nuclear, environmental, and clean energy fields.
Welcome back to Between the Lines. We're talking with Centrus Energy, and we're talking about the most important product issue in energy today, and that's energy independence, that America can produce its own enriched uranium and many other challenges so we don't depend on worldwide allies and or questionable allies. It's been a great show. They're helping us. We understand that they've got a basketball, they got a key to the gym, they're ready to go, they want to play. We just got to make those decisions on a national level to get it in. And that doesn't mean we don't encourage other people to participate. They need to. But if we're going to get started next 2 or 3 years, we've got to get some companies that are ready to go on the field, and that's where we're at. And what do you got, Patrick? He moved the sheets to you. That means it's your turn.
Those sheets.
We were going
to talk about community involvement.
Yeah, we were. And there was something else you wanted to say. Oh, we were going to talk about the $60 million in infrastructure stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you did talk about speed to market. You know,
yeah.
Even though these contracts haven't been awarded, you know, Centrus has put up our own money, $60 million,
yes,
to get ahead of the game for the manufacturing facility. So there's
and that's a buy-in in itself for me. Now, I'm not up there making decisions, but that's a buy-in. If somebody's willing to spend that much money to get it going.
That's a good way to phrase it. You know, we view it as an insurance policy. We're committing to schedules that are tough and aggressive, and this is the way we meet those schedules. We're ready to go.
Well, that's a good point, because if they're talking about the Second Manhattan Project in 2 to 4 years and 3 to 4 years, they built 11 processing facilities in 19 months in 1942 and 3. If they really want to get on that speed, then, yeah, I mean, you investing $60,000 in infrastructure equipment to be ready to go when they award it shows that you're vested in that vision that they have.
$60 million.
That's 8,000 a time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a kilo thing.
60,000.
60,000.
And then in Piketon, we have a similar effort. We haven't scoped it out yet, but it's going to be a similar investment.
Truthfully, if it was 1,000 or $1 billion, it still shows that you're doing what you're
putting our
supposed
skin,
to be doing.
skin in the game. We're confident.
Well, and I think, well, this is me talking, no, only me. But if I had the leverage, I'd invest too. I'd keep pushing the leverage. You got to push the leverage.
It's the right thing to do. We have to make sure that we're ready to do what we need to do. You mentioned all the buildings that were built as part of the Manhattan Project and as quickly as they were done. That was done because there was a belief, a need, an understanding that we had to push aside lots of things and just
we were aligned. We were politically aligned.
Everybody was committed to the same thing, and we believe the same thing can happen here. One comment, the president put out the executive orders a couple of weeks ago, and one of those was aimed at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Yes.
Now, NRC does what they've been asked to do. My experience with NRC is that there are some ways they could improve and be more efficient, but my experience with them also is when we work with them, we work cooperatively with them, and they never become critical path on our schedule. Mm-hmm. They do what they say they're going to do.
And that's all you can really ask. I mean, if they don't have the administration asking them to do more quicker, then they have to respond to whoever the leader is at that time.
That's right.
I don't have no problems with NRC.
Well, I don't either. There's some bureaucratic things.
In what organization is there not? Right?
That's exactly right. That's one thing we're particularly proud of. We have a management chain and a management structure that we knock down the bureaucracy immediately. If we need to move on something, make a decision today, we make the decision today and move on. So
Centrus does have a great relationship with the NRC. I've worked other commercial facilities in the nuclear industry, and I think it's the transparency and relationship we have with the NRC. It helps us. We have that regulatory capital with them that we could. We're efficient when we work.
And the NRC, unlike the Department of Energy, I think, is basically a regulatory licensing that you can't build anything unless they give you a permit to do so. Is that a fair statement?
That's right. Yeah, so to get a license, there are a number of steps you have to go through. You have to have an environmental impact statement, which is the hard part of the license, quite frankly. And then whoever is supplying the application for a license has to describe their process and identify the risk and the accidents that are that can potentially occur in that process, and the mitigation factors. NRC takes that information and evaluates whether you've got the right mitigations in place or not.
I don't think fairness has ever been an issue with people that complain. I think it's been how long it takes.
Yeah.
We've got to go faster. We got to go. Everybody's got to get on board. We got to go faster, and I think people are on board for that. I think people are on board for that, but it's hard to go fast if you don't have any money to put fuel in your tank. So we'll see if the funding mechanisms match that. And there seems to be a lot of debate on the floor. I was talking with Washington this morning, and you got Senate pulling one way and Doge pulling another way, kind of thing, or old Doge or whatever. So I think it'll be interesting. But I think Chuck's been a safeguard to what really needs to happen. And if your administration is going to come out, and I've been a big defender of Donald Trump's, but if your administration comes out and says, we've got to go faster, we've got to get this done, then you need to be ready to pay for that. Well, and that's where I'm at on the whole process and the whole thing.
That's clear. The president's setting a policy that it's America first right now.
And that we're not in first place.
And we're not in first place.
That's the biggest concern for me, is that we've allowed two foreign powers who were smart enough at the sacrifice of their own people, in a sense that they didn't invest much into domestic comforts and stuff, but they invest in their military and research. You go ahead. You want to say something?
I was just going to say, we're in the birthplace of uranium enrichment, and right. As a country, we've lost it. And to me, that's egregious. And we're here to take back that American.
And that's priorities. Yeah. That's priorities. We let it go. We let it go because we never thought we'd just. Yeah. I wish in my 40 years I could tell you that was unusual. But I think we're in a position where, I think, to be fair to Jimmy Carter, because most of this happened in the Clinton administration, but to be fair to Jimmy Carter, he was a nuclear engineer and he understood it. Yeah. And it was in Admiral Rickover's group.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I told the story last week, but I'm going to say it since you're in the Navy, that Admiral Ricko had a pool of secretaries during the war and afterwards, right? And one of those later in life became my secretary in Pittsburgh for stuff, right? Oh, really? She used to look at me midway through the day and go, "You're no Admiral Ricko." I said, I never claimed to be. I never claimed to be that tough. That's not me. What's the next step? What do we do now? What do we do? You're getting it done already on the best level you can.
Right.
You're waiting on the government to give you more to do.
Yep. The next step is.
And everybody else is waiting for 3 or 4 years to get a little bit of funding here and there. But if we're going to move now, we got to. I mean, I know you're working it. Everybody works it. All companies work it. But I mean, what do you think the time frame is? Do you think you got a chance in this phase 3 thing to get some more work going?
We do.
But outside of that's above and beyond what we're trying to do with the other money, right? So, I mean, I think that's in good shape based on performance. But again, I don't get a vote. Yeah. But where do you think it's going to go? With these 6 companies, 2 here, 4 here, do you think DOE will move and try to, best of your knowledge, pick some people and go with this? This summer or fall?
I hope so. I know we have our proposal into DOE. I presume all the other 5 competitors do as well. So DOE presumably is evaluating those. I don't want to be negative, but I'm always concerned that this ends up becoming viewed as a science project, not a production project.
That's the first thing I thought when they gave $2 million to 6 people.
A little bit of money to everyone. This is a scale business. You need to pick just a few and put big, large dollars to do it meaningfully, not just
I've been in management my whole life in different areas, and I used to say, they'd come in and say, you got to cut $1 million. You know, you can go in and cut everybody's salaries $5,000. I said, nope, I'm going to lay 8 people off at 150, because why would I want to affect the 92 people?
That's right.
And that's your point, that we can't be trying to manage
peanut butter spread. It's not going to get the job done.
It's not. That's exactly right. That's exactly. We'll let everybody be on the team, and exactly. You got to pick some players and go. That's where we're at.
Yeah, there's always a reluctance to pick winners and losers, but it's time. We got to pick winners and losers here, and we've got to move forward.
You could pick winners, but I mean, we got to have an A team where they're going, and then we can have a B team that does certain things and gets done what they need to do. But the A team needs to be meeting those 3- and 4-year objectives, and nobody can tell me anything. And I'm asking a lot of people of anything in this uranium challenge to become more. Nobody can tell me anybody that can get it done in 4 years, that we'll be able to deliver you so many kilograms in 4 years. It just doesn't exist outside of Centrus. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm not saying that because you're on the show. I'm just saying that's what I see. Yeah. Is that who else can take it and run with it? Yeah. I think that's a very positive sign. Tell us a little bit about the community. You were going to say a few words?
I was going to say, I know we're active.
How about you?
In the community.
Yeah, you haven't been here. You've been in New York.
I just joined, and we had the family community day, so I was blown away. But
I remember that. Yeah, you've been up in New York watching people try to get electricity.
Tried to do it. Yeah, so we're heavily involved in community. As Patrick said, we had a community day last Friday, a week ago today, and we had between 400 and 500 people that showed up.
Good timing with the cold war.
And I told my folks after that, I said, we had 3 major wins out of that. First was our employees that were there that were able to bring their families into a classified space. We declassified it for them. You could just see the pride bubbling out of them as they talked to their families, which is fantastic. When Congressman Fleischman stood to speak, he got a standing ovation, and that visibly moved him. But it sent a message that we're here, we're real, we support you, we want you to support us, which was incredibly important. And there was a third piece, which is maybe less important, but from the larger perspective, but from my perspective and our company's perspective, I had a lady that lives on our front fence line come to me after our event, and she said something that really moved me. She said, Larry, I'm a widow. I live there with my dog. I know your plant's there. I don't know what you do, and I've always been worried about it. She said, after I went through your plant and talked to all your people, and they explained to me how we focused on safety first and compliance and then production, she said, I am very comfortable. I love living here. You've taken care of my worries. So just having the people that live in close proximity come and say something like that's important.
Okay, we got about a minute and a half left. We're going to talk about your retirement from here to the end, okay? So how long have you been involved with Centrus?
Since Centrus was beginning. Actually, I started in the gaseous fusion plant in Ohio in 1981. Okay. So 44 years I've been in this business. I started as a very young...
Was your wife from Pine?
No, my wife was from a little town about 30 miles east of there, Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it counts as one area.
Yeah, it is.
Local girl, right? I got you.
Yeah, it is. In that area, we may be related. Who knows?
County. Leaving that alone. County Fair could have been the place. In between or something like that.
It certainly could have been. But I started as a young engineer in the plant and moved through all the ranks of management, and ultimately a fateful day in 2008, the senior vice president of our company, that's in the role I have now, came and said, I want you to go to Oak Ridge and set up manufacturing in Oak Ridge.
Good. What year was that?
2008.
Wow.
Yep.
So you've been here a while.
I've been here for a while. We've been hidden behind those fences for a while.
That's okay.
And quite quite naturally.
You've earned your
classified company.
vacation, right?
I'm
You had a
looking
great
forward
line
to
the
it.
other day. Before I get to the end of the highway, spend some time. You got grandkids?
I have 9 grandchildren.
Well, you better get busy. You're on the road more now than you were before. Patrick, good luck. If you need anything in the community, let us know. We're all behind you.
Thanks,
Anything we can do, welcome here. Utility rates will be cheaper, I promise. So
I'm excited. Yeah, we're looking to get it done. Do big things here.
what do we got left, Brad? 20 seconds? Very good. Where are you going to go for your first vacation?
My wife's already scheduled a trip for us. We're heading out on Amtrak to Chicago, Glacier, Seattle.
I like Amtrak. A lot of people don't, but I like it.
Banff, Calgary.
Got it. 4. Okay. Thank you for watching. We appreciate Centrus. Big investment in the Oak Ridge.